Welcome, everybody. My name is Ryan Lee. I'm the Occupational Therapy student with ACOT, and I'd like to do the Introduction to Registration presentation for new grads. Before I begin, I'd like to make some acknowledgements. The Alberta College of Occupational Therapists respectfully acknowledges that OTs in Alberta practice on Treaty 6, 7, and 8 territories, comprising of the traditional lands of Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit people of Canada, with me in particular presenting from Treaty 7 land. We acknowledge their presence, history, languages, and cultures that continue to enrich our vibrant communities. So let's get into the requirements you'll need in order to apply. You'll need a government-issued ID, as well as your undergrad information, which includes your bachelor's degree. You'll also need proof of program completion, including the 1,000 hours of supervised clinical education, otherwise known as our placements, in a letter of entitlement to graduate, which is sent to ACOT through the university. You'll also need an employer as well as an OT supervisor, and you'll need to send your OT supervisor contact information to registration@acot.ca. Your supervisor is chosen by your employer, and your supervisor must be registered with ACOT for a minimum of 1 year. They don't have to be on site, but they must be available to answer questions. Some other requirements include your criminal record and vulnerable sector check. This has to be recent within 6 months of the submitted application. It might be recommended that you start your criminal record check early, as it can take quite a while for it to be completed. It could be 1 to 3 weeks. You'll also want to have your national exam receipt as proof of registration to write the exam. You'll also want to have completed the E module, Protecting Patients from Sexual Abuse and Misconduct, prior to application. You'll also want personal liability insurance that is a minimum of $5 million. It has to be active when you submit your registration. So make sure that to confirm with them to make sure that it is active at that time. After you've submitted your application and the supporting documents, please allow for 10 business days to receive notification that you've been registered. Keep in mind that the ACOT office is closed for holidays between December 23rd, 2022 at noon and reopening on January 3rd, 2023. During this time, you may not work in any capacity until you receive notification that you have been registered. You cannot call yourself provisional until you are registered, and you are provisional until you send in your national exam results, transcripts, and get confirmation. January 9th is the soft date for the earliest when you'll receive registration, but you'll have to keep in mind that there is a large volume at this time, and we recommend that you submit your application as soon as possible once you meet the requirements, as it is done by order of receipts. Please don't worry about practice hours. Students meet the requirements for practice hours, that is the 1,000 hours of clinical education that we did on fieldwork for up to 2 years after completion of the program. So now I will show you how to browse the ACOT website in order to register. So first we will input acot.ca into our web browser in order to land on the ACOT page. We will then look at this top bar here where we'll click on registration. After doing so, we can scroll down and look on the left side here. As you are a new Canadian graduate, we'll click on that. Here you can see the application form and also another video on how to register. We'll click on the application form. And this is where you can find the sign up page for Alinity, which is our platform for our applications. So you'll input your email address and then you'll confirm your email address there. So after you have completed that sign up process, you'll receive an email in your email address that you've inputted to confirm that you've made this account. Please make sure that when you put in an email address to sign up, You don't use an employer email, as when you leave that job, typically you won't have access to that email anymore. So after you have completed that registration process, you're going to log into your account that you just created, and you also created the password as well. So after you logged in, this is the screen that you'll see. You're going to see general, provisional, and courtesy, and you're going to want to click provisional. So on this page, you'll be prompted to update your profile first, and you're just going to make sure that your name is correct here, input your gender, and your birth date, and upload your ID. Then you're going to enter your address. And you want to input your contact information, again, making sure that the email that you use isn't your employer email so you don't lose it. Here you can put in any spoken or written languages other than English that you know. And under the education tab, you can put down your qualifying education. So your qualifying education would be your occupational therapy degree. And then here on the CAOT national exam, you're going to put down the date that you're registered to write the exam. And because we haven't written it yet, we'll put down pending. For employment, all these things, because you haven't been employed yet, you're going to put down 0. And on the 2022-2023 employment, you can add new or additional employers. So you can look for your organization. And then you're going to put down your status, the age range that you work with, area of practice, and if they're not available in the list, you can enter their name, location, and phone number here. And then moving on, we'll go to specializations. So if you do have an acupuncture specialization, that is to say you have the adequate training to do acupuncture, you can tick that box, otherwise just ignore it. Other jurisdictions, we haven't graduated yet, so I don't imagine that you'd be registered in other jurisdictions yet, but that's where you would do it if you were. And this consent piece here is just if you wish to receive correspondence from the Society of Alberta Occupational Therapists via email. So then you'll press next. Oops. So that will upload. All right, so then we'll get to the second part of our application. So again, this is a little prompt here asking you for your letter of entitlement to graduate. Again, the U of A will send to ACOT, confirming your program completion. Here's your criminal record check. They ask you to upload your criminal record check with a vulnerable sector check. So make sure you do that. All right. And then there's this memorandum of understanding. This page is not just for new grads. It's also for people who might be re-entering the program on the provisional register. But for our purposes, we can skip over this. Statement of candidacy. This is if you haven't received the results of the national exam yet. Naturally, we haven't written it yet. So we're going to attach our national exam registration receipt. Like so. And this is if you're applying from another country and you upload a document from your past employer with proof of practice hours. This doesn't apply to us. And then there's the insurance document we'll upload. That also, again, states that you have to have $5 million in coverage at minimum and that it's active at the time of your application. These declarations you should read very carefully and answer truthfully. And this final declaration here, again with the insurance, making sure that your liability insurance is for the practice of occupational therapy in Alberta, no less than $5 million, and that you, if you were randomly selected for a CCP review and revaluation, you're going to provide a copy of your current insurance certificate. So click that. Acknowledge that. Mandatory training declaration. This is just, again, to reiterate that you should have done this protecting patients from sexual abuse and sexual misconduct e-module at the time of this application. So you'll click that, acknowledge that. And then the standards declaration, where you agree to abide by the Alberta College of Occupational Therapists Code of Ethics and Standard of Practice. So you'll click that as well. And then you will click submit. You'll be prompted to pay $150 to submit your application and $137.50 once your application has been approved. Total cost to register before February 28th, 2023 is $287.50, as this will be the end of the current registration year. If you register for the next registration year, March 1st or later, you will pay $700 total. I'd like to take a moment to talk about the Continuing Competence Program, or CCP. You're obligated to complete a yearly self-evaluation of your professional competence as outlined in the legislation. ACOT CCP is register-directed and reflection-based. Reflection is used as an indirect measure of an OT's competence, and this is well supported within the literature. You can compare this to the continuing education credits in other colleges. There are 6 components of the CCP. If you register in January and February, you'll need to complete all 6 of the components for the January-February duration. During renewal, you'll need to initiate next year's CCP. For registration during January to February, new registrants will be prompted to complete one goal. It is suggested that your area of focus and goal for your CCP is either on the Protecting Patients from Sexual Abuse and Misconduct e-module that was an application requirement, or the new e-learning module on the new competencies for occupational therapists in Canada. This was developed between ACOTRO, ACOT, and CAOT, and essentially it's a unified 3 competency documents, and they made it into one. And this e-module is for you to learn about them. It covers the domains of occupational therapy expertise, communication and collaboration, culture, equity and justice, excellence in practice, professional responsibility, and engagement with the profession. This illustration helps clarify what you need to do for the continuing competence program. Let's say that you have registered in January or February of this year. You will need to complete all 6 components before the renewal, that is to say, March 1st. And then you will need to complete these 4 components for renewal for next year. These learning activity records, reflection, and goal status reflection will be done throughout next year, building on top of those 4 that you already completed. There are many resources that are available on the ACOT website that you might find useful. I highly encourage you to look at the Continuing Competence tab on the ACOT website, where you can find additional resources as well as tutorials to complete the CCP process. I hope, all in all, that this presentation was helpful for you, and I wish you the best of luck and success.